In public discussions, with millions of intertwined topics and new facts unfolding every moment, the number of individuals with the capacity and time to personally verify the ultimate truth or falsehood of what is said is tiny or non-existent. For the mass of observers, the notion of truth is inseparably fused with that of trustworthiness, and therefore with authority. The argumentum auctoritatis, the weakest of arguments, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, ends up being not only the most used, but the only one by which the population allows itself to be guided. Therefore, to know which ideas will be accepted by the population, it suffices to investigate what the authorities say. Generally, there are two and only two sources of authority. 1. The state. 2. The beautiful people, famous individuals, and the media that gives them fame. This includes the academic class. Some margin for objective discussion appears only when these two sources come into conflict. When they agree, divergent opinion, however well-founded, disappears into the ocean of indifference or is frankly stigmatized as a symptom of mental illness. In Brazil, where the media and academia depend almost entirely on the state, it becomes the sole source of authority, its word the unshakable foundation of all beliefs. When public opinion turns against the existing government, it is because the government, through ineptitude or any other reason, relaxed control over the secondary source. This happened under the military regime, in the Collor de Mello administration, and now in the melancholy final days of the communist PT empire. Even during conflict, however, the media, show business, and academia know that, in the long run, they remain dependent on the state. Therefore, when opposing a government, they fight only for superficial changes that leave intact the fundamental structures of power. The governing class absorbs all impacts and always finds a way to turn them to its benefit. That is why, even if not so large in absolute terms, just imagine a comparison with the Chinese or Cuban bureaucracy. The Brazilian state wields overwhelming power against a defenseless civil society, incapable of organizing itself, which, even knowing it is robbed, deceived, and humiliated, only manages to mobilize when called upon by the beautiful people, who invariably take advantage of the situation and end up restoring their good relations with the state at the first opportunity. Evidently, Brazil's problem is not the size of the state but the weakness of civil society, that is, the mass who work and produce. What greater proof is there of this than the scandalous phenomenon of a ruling party which, rejected and abhorred by 92% of the population, remains unshaken in power and still permits itself to speak in a threatening and arrogant tone. It is a sad irony that, at this moment, even those who hate this party with all their might take care not to fight it except through institutional and normal means, as if the institutions, once consecrated on paper, had the right to revoke the popular will that once created and legitimized them and now lies crushed under the infernal machine of kleptobureaucracy. The height of madness appears when the cry to respect the institutions comes from the very same mouths that just said, "The institutions are all captured." It is a beautiful reasoning. The institutions are not trustworthy, therefore let us trust them. Strengthening and organizing society, appealing to civil disobedience, encouraging unofficial initiative, ignoring the state, as Herbert Spencer recommended, are ideas before which these people recoil in horror, preferring instead to endure the PT debacle for I don't know how many more decades rather than admit that legitimate authority is not in Brasilia, but in the streets and squares throughout the country. The communal Arapio system will not fall until the beautiful people, in which we, journalists, include ourselves, accept that above them and above the state, there exists a third and more legitimate source of authority, the opinion of all, the vox populi. Until that happens, the people continue to be sacrificed on the altar of officialdom, where priests of infamy repeat day and night the sinister mantra, "Long live institutional normality." Down with the Brazilian people.